welcome back to Butte two folks that are not strangers here. I'd like to introduce Grennan and Winifred Horan. Katie is an Irish fiddle virtuoso and a certified dance teacher. She toured with Gaelic Storm for over 5 years and is a past instructor for the Trinity Academy of Irish Dance in Chicago. Her local ties here are when she would come and teach at the local level with the Trinity Irish dancers here in Butte. So yay! And she was born in New York City to Irish parents, studied classical violin in Boston. She toured with the all-female group called the band Cherished Ladies. Has anybody ever had the opportunity to hear Cherished Ladies? Oh, yes. She was a founding member of Solus when they put together the album based on Butte, here in Butte, that was called Shamrock City. And that was awesome. I remember being down at the Front Street Station when they put it on, and we're all just weeping buckets because every song was about Butte or brought back memories of Butte. It was awesome. So both of these ladies will be appearing this year in the band called Reverie Road a number of times up at the original. Please today, but we welcome the ladies with their stories and experiences growing up with an Irish background. Miss Winnie believes she's suffering with some altitude sickness, so we'll proceed as the health allows. How's that sound? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen. So nice to see everyone, and thank you so much for coming out at the start of this weekend to hang out with us for an hour. So yeah, we're so excited to be back in Butte, and it was a great night last night at the reception, and played some tunes into the wee hours, so we're feeling all warmed up and ready to go. Yeah, we're all yes.
Hey, on the way over, Katie said I was starting to have a nosebleed. Is that a symptom?
Yeah. It's gone now, though. It's gone.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
But so listen, it's so amazing. It's so great to be back in Butte. I'm going to start crying. We love you, Liz.
Can't be well, we were thinking we could maybe start with a selection from that album that Helen mentioned, Shamrock City. Yeah, just a gorgeous piece that Win composed, right?
Yeah. So this is definitely altitude sickness. But I think it's really important to also tell you how Katie and I became so very connected over the last couple of years. And partly, well, we knew each other, but partly COVID brought us together on the computer. I guess, well, we tried to organize some film workshops, and we were teaching lessons online anyway, and we decided to join forces and do an online
fiddle extravaganza. The idea, we started talking about it maybe 6 months into the pandemic, and Win was grounded, I was grounded. I've been touring for the last 4 years up until that with Gaelic Storm, so I found myself with all this time at home, and so did Win, and we were doing a lot of Zoom lessons, but it's a little lonely when you're the one always being the teacher and you're connecting with students, but we were like, we have very similar lives right now. Let's see if we can kind of pull this together and give our students some exposure to each other via Zoom. And it was amazing because we had people, our first year, we had over 100 students from all over the world, which was crazy. We had a lady from Israel, I believe, someone from Moscow. Yeah, from Moscow. And that was the beauty of Zoom. People could just sign up anywhere. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it gave us something to look forward to. We had so many Zoom calls. Win was new to the Zoom technology, as was I, so we all had to get up to speed really quickly. Sometimes I felt like the online tech support for sending, Zoom links for breakout rooms and all sorts of things. If anyone's familiar with Zoom, but we had a great time. And we had 2 other instructors, one from Boston and one from Colorado. So the 4 of us. That was our first year. And then the second year, we thought, oh, the world will surely be open by then. We'll do it in person. And unfortunately, as we all know, it was not. So we decided to give it another go. And that year, we actually invited some instructors from Ireland and the Shetland Islands to Zoom in, and they gave some seminars and some talks and some lessons. We had 7 instructors that year, and we had even more students. It was great. So anyway,
And I think it was amazing to sort of see and feel like what we got out of it. It was much more, during the pandemic, it felt much more about not the teaching, it was more the connection, right?
Yes.
And it was reciprocal. Like I remember saying to the girls, myself and the other, Katie and the other instructors, we'd maybe meet 10 minutes before we jump on to be with all the students, and we would say, God, doesn't this feel like a lifeline? Like for us, and that's what it became for everybody. I think it was much more about the community that we felt like we could have. I think that was really the only thing we could have at that time. It was so bizarre and so surreal, and everyone had a story, and we shared loads of stories. So yeah, it wasn't. It was much more about chatting. Everyone got to. It was hard. The technology of it, like getting the hang of like when to mute yourself, and all that stuff.
yes. And then the other
I still
thing,
haven't learned.
the other thing we should mention is maybe you know this if you tried Zoom as a musician, but you cannot play together through Zoom. So that was a really interesting thing. There's a delay, so everyone would have to mute except for one person. So we really figured out all these little tricks to make people still feel like they were playing with people. We had sessions where everyone was muted, but you could see their faces on the screen. So that was a really interesting challenge, but a really cool way to still learn. And the really cool thing about this is like we know each other's students now. We meet people literally at every turn when we're out performing back in the real world. I'd say almost every time we perform together, there has been a fiddle frenzy person that we met online, and there's some here in Montana as well. So yeah, it was really neat.
How did you guys all get on? Like, I think it's important to ask. I know we're past it and stuff, but how did you fare? It was weird, wasn't it?
Weird.
Just weird. Because you missed each other. You missed the community. Yeah, it was lonely. So I just happened to be home, but it's important, right? Like I just happened to be home. I moved back to New York September of 2019 to Brian, Roy, you know this story, like to take care of my dad, who had been diagnosed with leukemia, with blood cancer, and it runs in his family, so we kind of knew it was coming. My granddad died of it, my great-grandfather died of it, and Mom had started to show early signs of dementia. So the kids, all of us, they can't be by themselves in the house anymore. So we've got to figure this out. And so I'm the only one in the family that doesn't have kids, and I don't have a real job. So I was fine with it, but it was basically a unanimous vote that it would be me. And I'm also the oldest, so it was really, really just after so many years of being on the road. And I know this is kind of what we want to talk about today, just like our experiences. To be on the road so many years and to then just be back home where like it really all started. Like I was sleeping in the bedroom that I grew up in, the bedroom that I would practice my fiddle in. There was still like I'm dating myself. I think there was like a Bay City Rollers poster in the closet. Do you remember those guys? I mean, it wasn't mine. But yeah, so the pandemic, you guys got it okay, but it just, as we came out of it, I know for me, as coming out of it and getting to be back social and have that really like tactile contact.
Yeah.
so bizarre to just everything boiled down to how you were on the keyboard.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember like messing around, like I was trying to have a little fun with it, like messing around with filters and like making funny faces.
Yeah.
You know, kind of, in some ways it brought out the children in us too.
I remember talking with you when around the time you had moved home, and she gave this really good analogy that she felt like she was Dorothy, like just landing in Kansas after years and years and decades of touring, and then all of a sudden she's back, and I wasn't maybe on the road for decades, but for my time with Gaelic Storm, it really felt like that too. It was like you're here, there, and everywhere, and then the next thing you know, you're back, kind of grounded, and it was a very strange,
Really strange
feeling, but great. And I think it caused everyone to reevaluate certain aspects of their life, and that's kind of how this project was born in many ways. So yeah, why don't we play? Let's play
the Welcome the Unknown. Welcome the Unknown, and as Katie was telling you, it was a tune that we included on the album Shamrock City, about Butte, and it's a nice little tune. And everyone was kind of responsible, not responsible, but it was the responsible thing to do to contribute to the album. Ideas and music and lyrics. And so this is a little tune that I contributed to the album, and it's called Welcome the Unknown. I don't really know how that title goes or how it works. Welcome the Unknown.
Yeah, it's kind of good.
Yeah, because the project was about immigrants coming to Butte, Michael Conway, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I always felt like what a ridiculously hard journey that must have been. Do you know? From like County Mayo or County Kerry somewhere. Just getting out of Ireland was, you were lucky to get out. It was an epic journey to get out. And then doing the middle
halfway across the country.
and landed in where, Philly or New York, and then you still had that journey twice more. Like it's a long way. Anyway, so this one, I just kind of thought of that. They really were coming into the unknown, weren't they? For sure. Okay, so we'll try to get through this. If I start to teeter, they have a polished Oscar in the catering room. Is that it? I do, music is good for you.
So surreal for me to be playing this with women because back about a decade ago, when Celis was touring that album, I think I went to see them in Chicago maybe 2 or 3 times, and yeah, I didn't really even know when at that point, but I was a huge fan of that album, listened to it so many times, and then was really excited when I did get to come to Butte for the first time a couple years later as an instructor for Tiernan at Trinity, the large school in Chicago that's connected with Tiernan. Usually they send an instructor like every 3 months, so I had to host for about 2 or 3 years, and yeah, just coming here for the first time and getting to really visualize and see and meet some of the people that are so connected to that album was really, really cool. So it's really just surreal to be playing that with you right now in front of you all. So thanks for being here.
It is true. Like I feel better, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Like I think it's really important to talk about that. That was such a lifeline as well for so many people, not just musicians, but I think music and song and, you know, I know that for me during COVID, during the pandemic, and I felt less lonely, obviously, if I was engaged in song or music, or for me, I got addicted to watching ballet videos. I got addicted, like, yeah.
That's news to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was tracking my new favorites, like the young cream of the crop, watching the oldest ballet videos I could find. I can't remember who was Nijinsky be? The Anybody fan? Yeah, Baryshnikov. I got to see him live. But yeah, so.
Oh wow.
But like, didn't that help everybody? It's like a balm for the soul or something.
Yeah.
It keeps you connected, but it also keeps you grounded in yourself. Right? Didn't you listen to loads? And
Yeah, lots of music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having the instruments on hand was so
Yeah.
yeah, so important.
It was one interesting thing, though, very interesting, trying to teach through the computer, especially with the kids. Although, in some ways, they were much more comfortable with the technology, right? So they had that going for them. Some of the older students, like, I was right in their boat, you know, turning themselves off, muting themselves, not, you know, just having a harder time. But I think because it's such a tactile relationship, you know, to your instrument, and how you try to have to teach that or show that,
Yeah.
or like have the feelings of the vibrations like coming right off in the room, immersed in that experience, obviously, is the best way, right? It's so much easier to express what you need to express when you're with the person or the student in the room. So that was a huge learning curve for us, for me,
Yeah.
how to try to talk to the kids about creating a more tactile relationship with what they were doing. It was a little alarming to me, like how that seems to be getting more a difficult concept for the kids to understand.
Yeah, they're so used to learning
Yeah.
virtually. Yeah.
Everything is virtual, everything is in some ways very tactile, but with like gadgets and remote controls, and I don't want to sound like I'm anti-technology, but you become very aware of it when you're trying to teach something this organic. Does that make sense? Right? Or even teaching them to plant a tomato. You know, no, seriously, like put a seed in the ground and see what happens. That's such a strange concept to most of them. So that's really sad, and that's very obvious to me. The longer I teach and the younger the kids get. That just came out like that. We can go down that road too. aging.
That's for the seminar at 12.
But no, so do you guys have any, like, so Katie and I have a history on the road, we played with bands, we've lived, you know, I don't know, 25, 30 years out of a suitcase for me. Lots of experience, lots of traveling. Do you guys have any questions about how that might have worked?
Because I'm sure you composed when you were on the road. What was your biggest experience being on the road? I mean, I'm sure it was a camaraderie and also the sheer drudgery of going from one place to the next, to sit out for the next, to the next. So what did you come up with?
Yeah, it's far less glamorous than definitely had some reality checks over the years. Yeah, the group I toured with for off and on for about 5 years was called Gaelic Storm, and they were the band that was in the movie Titanic. That's kind of how they got their rise to fame. I did tour with other groups before that, but once I was involved in that group, it was hard to do much else because they toured so heavily. I think at the most I was on the road one year was like 150 days just with them alone. So that was a lot, and they were like, oh, this is nothing. We used to do like 270 or 250, and I couldn't even imagine that. But yeah, that was like, they were just like, it was a machine. They'd been doing it for 25 years. They had the same venues, they had the same contacts every year. In my head, like the years of 2018 and 2019 are like the same year because the exact same thing happened at different points throughout the year. The same venues, saw the same people. But yeah, we would like sometimes hit up like 20 cities in the course of 23 days. So we would drive, get to the venue in time for the sound check, do the gig, stick around for an hour to meet folks, and then get back in the van. And sometimes it was not unusual for us to get to the hotel for that night at like 2 or 3 in the morning, do a quick sleep, and then get back on the road and keep driving. So that was a lot. It was such a great experience, and I feel like both Win and I have talked about over the years, like anxiety, and I used to have a lot of stage fright actually, but being on the road with Gaelic Storm really knocked that out of me a lot. I still get it, but yeah, it was just kind of a sink or swim situation, and it was great to have that repetition so many times throughout the year with the same show, with the same music, with the same people, the same show order. Like it took so many variables out of the equation, so that was kind of neat. But yeah, I mean, with her group, you were a founding member of Soloist. I was one of many fiddle players that they've had over the years. I think I was number 7 or number 13, depending on who you talk to. And Gaelic Storm, yeah. So when I was with the group, it was I would kind of liken it to like a legacy band. Like they were really kind of done writing new music. There wasn't a lot of creativity on the road. It was just kind of show up, do your thing, play the hits the fans want to play, and move on. So I was definitely yearning for more creativity and would do some of that on my own, but it wasn't until I left the group last year that I was able to really kind of, I guess, spread my wings, for lack of a better term, and work on starting something new and playing new music and playing something that spoke to me a little bit more. So we're so excited to be debuting our group here. Yes, hello.
Speaking of new and creative, one of your big fans, Tom Powers from Dolan Gulch, mentioned to me yesterday that during COVID, you two ladies kind of collaborated on a little bit of, did he say fiddle frenzy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Is that something we could get a bit of a taste of?
Sure. So
Not to put you on the spot.
So that was the work. That was like the online workshop we kind of talked about. Yeah, I mean, like we said, seeing each other through the screen and not being able to actually play together was really very frustrating, especially because I've been a big fan of Win's playing for so many years. It was so cool to be working with you, but I was like, but we've never actually played a note together. So many hours on the phone, so many hours on Zoom, so many sound files traded back and forth. It was really bizarre that we got to like 2022 and I was like, I still haven't played a note with you. Like, that's weird.
I couldn't believe when we were coming around to do it the 3rd time, or possibly getting to the 3rd time. And that's when it hit us that, oh my goodness, COVID is still around, we're still in this thing.
Yeah.
It was just so surreal, but we didn't do it the 3rd time because we were kind of burnt on it. And it was it was a noticeable change even for the kids.
Yes.
There was way too much screen time
Yeah.
happening. And their parents were starting to
Yeah,
make us
we always say,
aware
like,
that so-and-so's been on the screen, because everything was happening on the computer.
yeah. And we had this schedule where we'd start at like, as soon as work and school was out on Friday, people would log on Zoom, we'd do like 4 or 5 hours, and then Saturday and Sunday, and
All day,
Monday,
all
it was
day.
all day. We started at 10 or 11, we finished up at 7. People didn't have to do all of that, and we recorded everything and shared the videos so people could kind of consume it at their own time. But I will say, it was really interesting organizing something like that on such a grand scale, because it was kind of nice that we didn't have much overhead. We just kind of had to pay ourselves and pay for Zoom, and it was a great way for some sort of like an entrepreneurial thing to happen with little risk. And we kept getting, I got probably 10 emails after the second one saying, the world's opening up again, are you guys gonna do this in person? At first we're like, oh yeah, we'll do it in person. And then we started to think through
realize how much
logistics
more-
and how would we get all these people from all corners of the United States and sometimes the world into one place. It involves flights, it involves renting space, insurance, like so many things that we just didn't even have to think about with Fiddle Frenzy, which is why we're kind of like, maybe we could just play some gigs together. Might be a little bit less work, so to speak, and less risk for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we could.
Although, tell them the backstory. The bank, when we had to, so you kind of have to incorporate it as a
Oh, yeah.
business. This is the other side of it that,
Yeah, we realized that we needed to have a bank account since we're a bank now. So I picked one up from the airport. We're on our way back to my place in Evanston, Chicago, right outside Chicago. And we're like, oh, we'll go to the bank. Like, it'll be no problem. So we show up at the bank, the local bank that I had gone to, and we're like, we're here to, open up a business account. And the guy's like, do you have an appointment? We need an appointment. And do you have a tax ID? We're like, no. We need that. And he's like,
is that the same as the social security number?
yeah. So he kindly turned us away and said, here's the website that you go to incorporate, do all of this and come back to me. So we did, but we were like, oh man,
No, but didn't he ask us how much we thought we were going to be worth?
Oh yeah.
He
did
just,
ask us how much
and we both almost spit our tea out. Like,
Yeah.
he said, how much you...
He's like, do you think you're bringing about $500,000? Yeah, the income level like started at like 100,000. We're like, okay, this is not. Yeah, we just started laughing and we kind of excused ourselves.
You got fit in the giggles. And
Yeah.
Did you go back to that guy?
I did not go back to that guy. I made an appointment this time.
Brian, I'm so sorry. My greeting and Lori, it was rushed.
Oh, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you guys got a new project coming to light here pretty soon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the genesis of Reverie Road and the new music?
Yeah.
We have it with us.
Yeah, we have. So we are in the midst of we're in the midst of a Kickstarter campaign. So we are trying to make back all the costs that we spent on the production and all of that. And we finished our full-length album literally just like a month ago, and we decided we were going to wait until to release it into 2024, which is the official plan. But Wynn called me one day and she's like, we're going to be in Butte. We don't know when we'll be back. We should definitely get this thing wrapped up to have in Butte. So we have the copies with us. We're not selling it anywhere until really the Kickstarter is done. But if you guys would like to pick up a copy, we are so excited to have that. And yeah, we should mention our bandmates, John and Utsav. So John is my husband. We just got married a couple of months ago. And Utsav is a long-time collaborator with Wynn, and he's just absolutely, is he here? He said he was going to come listen to us. Of course, we say too much about him. But
He would sneak in and not.
He probably is. He's probably hiding under
Well,
the
if he
chair.
is here, that's not cool. It's not cool. It's like, go home. I'm more nervous talking in front of the guys.
Yeah, same.
So just, because they have a tendency it's either like turn everything into a joke. But no, to Brian's question about
Yes.
the band, yeah, so it just kind of made sense, you know. I had been, after Solace took a sabbatical, we stopped touring in, was it 2017 or 2018? 2017 was our last spring tour, I think. And that was another time it felt like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. You know, the scene where the house is. So I think I had like 2 years off maybe. I just took 2 years off. It felt weird. I couldn't feel grounded, you know, because you like Katie was telling you before, you become so conditioned to just moving, stopping for brief periods of time. Like the gig, the concert is not the work.
Yeah.
Right? It's all the other stuff around it, like the flights, the driving,
you get paid to travel, and then the bonus is you get to play at the end of the night.
in no way, like, I'm not complaining, like, I wouldn't change, I don't think I would change anything if I got to do it again, or, you know, and that's a good thing to be able to say. I mean, it was really hectic, though. Living out of a suitcase, not a very conventional lifestyle, no guarantees. You know, so yeah, like I can see why parents get worried. Or, you know, like my dad said to me, my dad passed away a couple of years ago. I was 20, I moved home to New York. It's a good story, right? It's a really beautiful story. Because my dad and I were like oil and water. And he was a very strict, he was a disciplinarian, he was an authoritarian. But he was really fascinating and really like a Renaissance man, kind of. He did everything, and he did everything well. It was like he was a wooden boat builder. He was a master carpenter. He started making violins. He was a beautiful writer. You name it, piano player. And he was good at sports. Like, it was just ridiculous. So obviously he was. I looked up to him, and he was my first teacher. But he was very, 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 very strict, very old school, and you know, he gave us everything that we needed or wanted if it was related to something that he thought was of value. That included sports or exercise, you know, but everything had to have like a beautiful meaning. And if it did, then he would work his butt off to give it to us. But when he was dying, I was home, and he didn't want he wanted to go old school. He wanted to die at home, so he made me promise him that there would be no intervention, no DNR was signed, no ambulances, no nurses, nothing. And I was like, this man was difficult before he was. Like he was at it until he died. Just he knew how to push my buttons. I knew how to push his. I was a rebel. I totally rebelled against him, and I found it so funny. I actually said it to my dad. Isn't this just unbelievable how life works? And like, here I am, and you kind of have to listen to me now. And it is driving him nuts. But like, then one afternoon, and Mom would be sitting, it was beautiful. The two of them had the last year together, Dad's last year. They had like a little den in the back of the house. Katie's seen it. And there was 2 recliners and all of the pictures of their grandkids. And, you know, oh God, they got a new flat screen. They were in heaven, you know. And what was I going to say though about that? Oh God, brain freeze. Oh, about Dad wanting to die at home. And I said, oh God, I knew he was going to make this awkward, you know. But it turned out right before he died, a couple of days before he died, he said, when I wanted to apologize, and I was like, oh God, Dad, you don't need to apologize, you know. And he was like, no, I really need to say this. He was like, I really should have pushed you to go to law school.
Oh.
and nothing. I could go to the moon and come back with moon dust, and he would be like, "That's not good enough. I need more proof," or whatever. But he came to a Silva show once, and of course I would be so proud, but also nervous, you know. And the family would come, and Dad, of course. I don't know how he managed every time, and I used to fake reserve seats so he couldn't sit too close to me. But he always managed to get right up front. And I remember I couldn't look down at him one time, and we came off stage at intermission, and the boys said to me in the room, they were like, "When is your dad okay?" And I was like, "I don't know, I can't look at him." What's going on? And he said, "All he's doing is sitting there like this." I'm not joking. No, I know. Just. So I was like, "Oh God, I'm glad I didn't see that." It still felt heavy when I heard it, you know. But it's okay. He you know, it was funny in the end. So yeah, he apologized for not pushing me into law. And that turned into a really beautiful moment then, because I was like, no. It couldn't have been any other way. It wouldn't have been any other way.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I was like, you didn't push me. You know, there's a gentle little nudge. But yeah, he was quite the character. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you, and then we'll start playing. So Mom and Dad were in their back room together, happy as clams. I was waiting on them hand and foot, and it was a joy, right? And Dad, it's so difficult. Dad loved Italian food. New York is all about the Italian food. When Dad came over from Ireland, he was just blown away by the Italian culture and like loved Italian food. So you know, the last couple of months of his life, I was making lasagnas, I was doing tea, and I was all proud. And I came in one day, and Dad said, "What's for dinner?" And I was like, "Oh, we're having lasagna." And he was like, "I don't like Italian food." It's not one of my favorites. I don't know if he had started to dote a little bit, or if he was just seriously trying to push my buttons. So then I got defensive and all, you know, fresh. I was like, "Dad, you're 85 years old. You've been eating Italian food since you got to New York City. What, you know, what years?" Yeah, but good. Anyway, so Mom and Dad are having their tea one day, and Dad leaned over to Mom and said, "Mom told me this." He leaned over to her and he said, "Mom, does your tea taste like pepper?" And Mom was like, "No, Joe, it's perfect." And he was like, "I think Wynn's trying to poison me." That's how it started to get in. Now, in fairness, and this isn't absolutely, I feel no remorse, and it was the compassionate thing to do for him. He started to really get very anxious and stressing out about, did I do a good job? Is Mom going to be taken care of? Did I raise my kids right? My grandkids? And he was just stressing about everything. And he wouldn't take any pills. No medication. He was Superman. And he'd let you know that. Like, "I've never taken a pill in my life. Why would I start?" But Dr. O'Connor said to me, "Listen, I'll prescribe him for sleep and I said he's getting really anxious. I know he knows what's coming down the pike." And so the doctor gave it to me to pick up. You know, I didn't tell Dad. And I was like crushing a half a tablet and putting it in his tea. And he copped on. Like, and, but it did make him, you know, it did relax him, and I felt good about that because he needed to. I think we're all staring it down, aren't we? Yeah, let's play something.
We never quite answered your question about the new music. We'll just give a little background as to how we came up with some of the arrangements, and maybe we'll play a little sample of one in a bit. But we all got together last May, so me and John actually flew to New York and met up with Wynn and Unza. And we really just spent like 3 or 4 days just kind kind of trading tunes that we really liked back and forth and coming up with arrangements. We went into Brooklyn one day to meet up with a song on the piano, and it was amazing because the tunes that we had shared in advance of meeting, there was nothing like just being in the same room and coming up with little nuances that would never happen sitting in our own little isolated chambers. But we actually ended up going to a recording studio like 4 days later just to start and see what came out of it. So some of those arrangements, like we literally came up with within 24 hours, and they are standing on the album as, you know, what we literally just generated with not much time together. And then so we had an initial kind of start, but we're like, oh gosh, there's a lot more we need to do. And we wrote some material. Wynn has a couple of her own compositions in the album, which is they're really cool reels. I wrote a jig, and then we kind of pulled from a number of different backgrounds. We have mostly Irish, but some Scottish, some French. And then once the tracks were kind of almost ready, we did some final overdubs, and as I like to say, we winified them. I love Wynn's like string arrangements, and I love the work that she's done in the past. So we got to kind of have that same element on this project, which was really cool. So.
And I think, thank you, Kate. It was really a beautiful process, and, you know, and I'm glad that we took our time, because it did feel like we knew we needed to ease into this, especially coming out of COVID, but also we wanted it to be right, and the more, I guess those first couple of tracks that we did, when we went in, it was kind of brave, I thought, to just get the studio space and be like, let's just go in and see what happens. And I mean, that sounds like very luxurious. It wasn't, but we wanted to sort of feel spontaneity of it. And we needed a place for the piano for itself. So, but the longer I lived with, and the same for you, the longer we lived with stuff that we had recorded, the more you start to get, well, I do anyway.
More ideas.
More ideas, or maybe I start to go down the self-criticism, or it could be better, or it's not good enough, or, and that happened, didn't it?
Yeah, we actually redid some of the stuff that we had already done. We went in and did either fresh tracks or we replaced certain things. So most of what you hear on the CD, it's interesting because it all sounds like it was done at the same time, but some of it was done on day 3, and then some of it was done 14 months later in New York and Chicago. Most tracks have elements of things being done in different places, layering and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's kind of neat. I hope you guys like it if you get a chance to pick it up this weekend. But let's play something from it. What do you maybe the jigs? You have a drink?
Yes. Can I sing?
Yeah, of course you can.
You know, I noticed, like, especially coming out, everything gets really dry.
Yes,
Even the instruments.
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, flying is not good for them anyway, but.
You play the fiddle, please?
I hope I have the staff.
It's pretty cool.
Yes, yeah. Let's do that.
Simple.
So we'll play a set of 3 jigs that we usually start our concerts with. So you'll probably hear this again later. Just on a bigger scale with what's up and drop and ball too.
And an oxygen tank.
It's over here.
How do you want to do all we'll see how it feels, yeah.
So you know your
Yeah,
G and A.
Yeah.
if you've got the floor. Okay,
Your nose is still
I'm good. I'm so much
Well, thank you guys so much.
Jason. Anybody has a quick question before we get to the next speaker, please?
Where did you find me?
We will have it at the festival today,
Merchandise.
and the merchandise tent. Are you guys coming to the festival?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Both days?
Of course.
When you're touring it, and I think you can relate that to any job, you get into routine. But you have people have special talent, so do you feel something like when you go to some places where there's a different energy than when you're usually just doing your job? You get into something where you just say, hey, that was way different.
Definitely. I mean, Butte is one of the best places. The energy is amazing. It's, as a now professional musician, it's so, you never know what your day is going to be.
Yeah.
So people have this, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, touring just, it sounds like it's so glamorous, and it's really, really not. But it's nice that we're both freelancers, because we can really, our days are what we want them to be, really. So when I'm at home, me and John, we're playing funerals, we're playing weddings, we're playing for church, masses, we're playing private parties, we're, teaching in front of a computer for 5 hours sometimes. Well, no. You've got your hands full as well. But it just, like, every day is different, so coming here and getting to play with Win and show what we've been working on so hard at home, it's such a treat. And we know the Butte audiences are just so welcoming, and it's really meaningful to be here. So
A treat for us.
it's a treat. Yeah, it's truly a treat. Yeah.